Hi guys, this is Elisa with Fusion DIY. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm the owner and the creator behind Fusion DIY, where I take roadside rescues and items that I find in flea markets and yard sales and garage sales, and I upcycle them and I put them in my booth for resale at the Pickers Junction, 141 East Broad Street in Quakertown, Pennsylvania. So today's video is all about a piece of furniture that was given to me by my boss. So thank you, Anita. And I will tell you more about the piece at the end of the video. In the meantime, let's get right to it, and I hope that you enjoy this video. So here is the piece that I got from my boss. When I first saw it, I thought it looked very manly, but I had some ideas of what I wanted to do with it. So originally my plan was to paint it black and just be done with it. But knowing me, as I do, I knew that that would just not be enough. So the first thing that I'm doing here is I'm going to give it a good clean. It was sitting in my workshop for a couple of weeks because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it, but I did find some inspiration, and so I'm going to clean it and then I'm going to sand it down, give it a scratch sand just so that the paint has something to adhere to, and then I'm going back over it again with a little bit of ammonia water just to clean up any of the sanding dust. Once that was done, I grabbed my paint, which is Fusion Mineral Paint in the color Algonquin. And this was the first time that I was using it on a piece of furniture. And I have to tell you that I am hooked. This is great paint. And so I've actually got the table upside down. So right now, the top of the table is the bottom, and the bottom of the table is the top. And I did that by design because I wanted to make sure that I got all of the bottom parts, the underside of the table, and the bottom part of the stand on which the table will sit. And I wanted all of that painted, so I started there first. Once that was done, I let it dry for about an hour, and then I came back and I gave it a second coat of paint. And I will tell you that the first coat covered really well. There was a few spots that it needed to be redone, but here is the finished paint job, and I just love how this paint covered this piece. Now, in true Fusion DIY fashion, I am going to decoupage this very neat piece of paper. The paper came in the maker's box from Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and this is a piece that came from Roycycled Treasures. So thank you, Royce, and thank you, Sonnet. The boxes are beautiful, and this piece, as soon as I saw it, I knew what I wanted to do with it. The problem is that I used it on another project, which you'll probably see in a couple of weeks, but I had bits and pieces left over, so I had to piece this for this job. So you'll see how I do that, and you'll be surprised because you won't even be able to see the seam once it's done. But what I'm doing here is I am putting on my strip of decoupage medium, and then I'm tapping down, trying to get out all of the wrinkles, and then I'll put down another row and then do the same thing. And I'm very careful to pat it and not to rub it too hard. But I will tell you that this decoupage paper is very durable, and it really is a beautiful paper. So I was really happy that it was so easy to work with. So once I got this piece down, and you can see where I tore the edge, and I do that by design because it's easier to feather in the edges together when it's not a straight line. It looks a whole lot cleaner, and it's really hard to decipher that line right there. So I took the leftover pieces, and I did the same thing with this piece. I actually took a paintbrush with some water on it, and I ran a line down the edge of the paper, and then you'll see here that I'm going to tear off the very edge of that paper to give that a broken line as well. It's not going to be a straight cut. It's, as I said, it's easier to feather in when it is a jagged edge as opposed to a straight edge. Now you can see how I am putting down the paper. I'm trying to match it so that there's as little overlap as possible, but yet at the same time I don't want too much of the white space in there in between. So I'm just going to trim off, and you can see that there's a piece that is still missing from that paper. That's because in the project that I used, it took a little bit more than I had anticipated, but that's not a problem. We can fix it. So I'm matching up the edge there, and I'm going to tap the paper down so that it sticks, and then I'll go back over the line, the seam there, with some more decoupage medium. That little corner in the right side of your screen, I'll get to that in just a minute, and you'll be amazed because you won't even be able to see that there was ever any seam there. So now I'm doing the same thing. I wet the edges of the piece that I need to fill in there, and I'm just gently tearing off the paper, and then I'm doing the same thing with the piece that I'm going to set into that little corner there. So you can see I'm setting the piece in, and then I'm going to cut off the excess so that I don't have to deal with it. And I'll cut off the piece too that I don't necessarily need. When everything is in place, I went back over the seams again, and then I let it sit for about an hour, and then I came back with my sandpaper and I sanded in a downward motion. I sanded off the excess paper around the edge of the table. So if you watched my last video, you will see how I took paint and I actually tapped paint onto the decoupage paper to match whatever. And in this case, I was using the leftover paint in my brush from painting the table. And I was just bringing some of that color up into the decoupage paper so that I could camouflage that seam. So I worked on this for a little bit, and at first I thought it wasn't going to work, but the more that I worked with it, the more I found the seam disappearing. And you'll see by the time I get to the end that it's really hard to make out that seam. It looks like it's just a shadow in the decoupage paper as a part of the design. So just as a reminder, I am taking my paintbrush and I am pouncing. I am not brushing because I don't want brush strokes on the decoupage paper. What I'm trying to do is just create shadows around the clock faces, and doing that, the only way to do that is through pouncing the paint. Then I came back with a little bit of off-white and I blended in a little bit of the off-white, which kind of gave it a more of a glistening look. It wasn't that the paint had any glitter in it, but it just kind of was highlighting, you know, some of the areas. So then after I did that, and I really liked how that was looking, I came back and I went back over the table again with the original paint, the Algonquin, and added again more of that color of the table. So at this point, let me ask you a question. Do you remember where the seam is on this paper? It's hard to see it, and that's by design. And so I am blending in some of the Algonquin paint with some of the white highlights and just trying to, again, camouflage the seam as best as possible. So this is pretty much finished, and I am going to keep this table home with me for about 30 days while I wait for the paint to cure so it will really harden. And here it is, all staged. I think it turned out fabulous. I love the color, I love the decoupage paper, I love how the paint blended. It's going to be perfect for a man cave or a bachelor's apartment. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? So what did you think about that flip? I have to tell you, it definitely took me out of my comfort zone because the majority of the furniture that I flip and the things that I flip are geared towards women. So this one was a little bit challenging, and it sat in my workshop for a couple of weeks until I got my maker's box from Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and I saw that amazing decoupage paper and knew exactly what I was going to use it on. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to my channel, give it a thumbs up, and hit the notification bell so that every time I release another video, you'll be notified. Your comments and your thumbs up definitely help my channel grow, because what happens is when you comment and when you give it a thumbs up, YouTube will push out this video to more individuals, and that's what helps my channel grow. Over the past several months, I have to tell you that I've gained over 75 followers, and I can't thank you enough for you being responsible for that, for liking and commenting. So please do so if you wouldn't mind. So next week, I am going to be working on a piece of furniture that you saw in the background of today's video, and it was the pink desk. So we'll tell you a little bit more about that next week. In the meantime, I hope that you have an awesome week, and I'll see you in the next video.